welcome everybody to TCR Trinity Competitive Racing, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Racing Debrief, TCR's podcast, where we combine the world of e-racing, sim racing, and TCR with real-life motorsports and Formula One. A true racing enthusiast listen. I am your host, C. Freeze, and this is going to be kind of a new era of TCR. We have a lot of things new in TCR here. We have a brand new background and look for the podcast as we move forward to the new release of the F125 video game, as well as TCR Season 20 that is coming in July on the new F125 game. It is cross-platform and signups are open. Check the description for more information. But today we're going to kind of talk about a little bit about the new F125 game, particularly things that you should do first when you first get the game. It might be some of drivers' first F1 game. Maybe it's your return to the F1 games. But generally, what should you do when you first get the game, or possibly what do I do when I get the video game? Things to set yourself up for success. So we'll get into that. It's a little bit of a first test for me. I got some new equipment. That's why it's just me here on this episode. So hopefully everyone continues to enjoy, and if you have more ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments or the Discord for future episodes. But to get into this now, I'd say, obviously, getting the game is good. You get that 3-day early release date. If you get that, I guess, the VIP version of it, which I usually always used to get when I was league racing and fully on the game, although nowadays I tend to get the regular version of the game. So that's, I guess, more up to you, the individual, of if you want that early access or not. I wouldn't get it if you're not going to be able to play in those first 3 days extra, unless if some of the features you tend to like would give you, I guess, worth of you to buy it, the VIP version. But once you log in and get the game, obviously there might be some tutorials and such, but I think one of the more important things is getting your equipment to work. So, looking through all the settings, right? I like certain things displayed on my overlays, for example, using miles per hour over kilometers per hour. I like to have the full track map on my overlay. So that's some things that I would start to change. I prefer cockpit. So I'm going to put cockpit view on my display, and then, really getting into it, making sure all of my settings with my wheel and my pedals and my audio is kind of linked up to where I kind of like it. So my first form of advice is to take as much settings from the previous game and translate them over onto the new game, because that'll help when making sure it's kind of familiar for you. So I think getting the settings is crucial, especially your settings on your POV. Depending on how far away you sit from the screen, there's certain POV calculators online that you can put the size of your screen and monitor, as well as how far you sit back from it, and that'll calculate your POV for, what you should be running to be the most realistic setting. Personally, that is, I guess, more useful for me because I'm in cockpit. But even for the TV pod viewers, which there are a lot of, there's still certain angles and POVs that you're kind of used to, or maybe other POVs that you can see a little bit more of, that maybe is an advantage that you want to take advantage of. So I think doing all of that is kind of crucial. Apart from your POV, I would also make sure that your wheel settings are kind of similar as well. So making sure your saturation, your brake, force feedback is kind of similar to what you did last game. And if you maybe, the good thing about starting with a new game is it's a new physics model, slightly. I mean, it's not going to be completely different, but, if it's a good chance to change some settings if you weren't that successful in the previous game, right? So feel free to play around with some settings to see what will truly work for you. And maybe you start to find something, but doing it in the early stages of the game is a good idea. Once you get your POV, your game settings all kind of configured, I would also, especially if you're on wheel, get used to your key maps for your keys or your buttons to make sure that they line up exactly like they were last game. So it's a pretty easy transition. Personally, for me, I like my DRS, my overtake buttons. I like certain information on my wheels, so I want to make sure that that's all there. Additionally, if you play other video games or other sims, I would probably suggest keeping a lot of those key maps similar through sim or through game. So when you go game to game or car to car, a lot of that information is the same, because you want muscle memory when it comes to these things, and you want to make sure you know what to hit, when to hit it, especially when you're in a league race. It is pretty crucial to get those things right. That would be, I guess, my next thing to do. Straight from there, once I get all the settings, obviously the first thing a lot of people will do is the new things on the game. So I'm testing out new cars, new liveries, new tracks, new updated tracks, and I think a lot of you guys will start to do the reverse tracks, which I think are a cool addition to this year's game, and I will definitely be one of them. I tend to like to start with time trial just to get a feel for the cars and the tracks, and this is where I will start to download setups. Right. I would like to start downloading setups and keep them saved in my presets. This way, when you go track to track, you have at least a preset that you can continuously update that. Obviously, the setups in the beginning of the game aren't going to be as good months down the line as we all get to learn more about the game and the physics of the cars and how to find speed, but I always like to add a setup to start that process. So usually the next thing is I'll go through some of the tracks, and honestly, I would like to go through time trial and get through all of the tracks. This way I can download at least a setup. I would go to the top time trial leaderboards. What could be a better route is going to your friends' leaderboards, especially if you have a lot of league racing friends added. I guess you can get a more reliable setup from those you trust rather than the public leaderboards. I would also keep an eye on setup metas, right? Maybe load a few different setups from a few different drivers and kind of see what are the similarities and differences, and what that correlates when you try it. This way you get a little bit of sense of what the setups are going to be looking like. But once you go through every track, and I'm only talking maybe a lap to 5 laps at a track, then moving on, download a setup, save it. This way, now, once I get all my setups preset, now I'm ready to hit online lobbies, I'm ready to hit single player league events, because now I have at least a setup to load into. Now I could start playing around with it. So, it might be good in time trial, but when I get to a 5-lap race or a 50% race or a different length of a race, I know, is this going to be a good setup or not? And then I could keep adjusting it, but at least I have a setup, because when you go to flappers and multiplayer lobbies, the last thing I want to do is have no setups available to load, because now I'm on a default or preset setup, and those tend to not be as good. And frankly, you can adjust the setups there, but the problem with that is, someone readies up pretty quickly, and then you don't have much time to update the setup, let alone save it. So that's kind of a little tip there I have. And honestly, when you get through that, once all your setups and your settings is all set in stone, I would say you want to log in at least 40 hours on the game. I think once you get to 40 hours, you have a general understanding of the game, and I would say you're pretty much up to speed by that point. During those 40 hours, it doesn't really matter how you get those in, as long as most of them are driving hours, right? You don't want to just log on to the game and sit in the main menu. That's going to add time to your game. So you want to maybe look at the stat of driving time or total laps or miles driven, which you can find more in the game when you go to your profile, if they still have that in the new one, just to make sure you're getting around 40 hours of lap time, right? Which might seem like a lot, but let's say the game comes out, you play 2 hours a night. In the first week, you're getting 14, right? So, and I'm sure other days you'll be playing more or less. So within the first month of the game, you should probably have around 40 hours. And, by then, league will start opening up. TCR Season 20 will be up and running in July. So make sure you guys sign up for that or tune in and watch us live. And by then, you should be pretty much up to speed. I would say in those 40 hours, have fun with it, right? Do whatever you want to do. Do time trial if you want to do time trial. Do career mode. Do multiplayer. Do events. Do leagues casually, competitively. Just play the game, right? Use all the different features. Try to learn as much as you can in those 40 hours. And then from there, if you're going to do league racing, stick with league racing. And if you're going to do career. But I guess this is more for the league racers' point of view, getting yourself up to speed on the game. And let's say if you do all of these things and you're still not up to speed against some others, that's when you have to start looking as to why. Well, why aren't you that quick? And then that's when we have to start changing things or updating things, either with your settings within the game or on your wheelbase. Or we have to look at your telemetry on the actual game to see if it's a driver error or if it's a setup error. And then we kind of go from there. So using time trial and the telemetry options, looking at other people's and looking at their telemetries to see where you're gaining and losing time is very helpful. And then from there, once you get up to speed and up to par, you use those setups and you make more of a race setup. So those race setups kind of come a little later on, but what I tend to like to do is to get up to speed on my 1-lap pace to fully understand the limit of the car, and then from there kind of branch out and locate that race pace potential. And really anything else, any other new features that have come out throughout the game, I want to make sure I'm testing. But generally, this is my kind of go-to for when I first load in on the game. And I think if a lot of you guys follow this, it'll help you 125 and to make sure you're not falling behind, some of the other drivers. So let me know what you guys do when you first get the F1 games. Do you follow a similar instance like I do, or do you do something completely different? Does it work for you? Does it not work for you? Or, have you guys even thought about this? I think it's really important when you first load in. So let me know what you guys think. But I just want to thank everyone for watching. Make sure to follow TCR on all socials and join the TCR Discord server where we are the most active. Until next episode, thank you for listening.